It was supposed to be another quiet night on North Bay Road, Miami's millionaire's row. But when police stepped inside the Crowley's mansion, they found a nightmare no one could forget. Jack and Trisha Crowley lay bound and gagged in their bedroom. Execution-style gunshots to the head, machete wounds carved across their bodies. No fingerprints, no shell casings, no screams heard by neighbors. Whoever killed them had been let inside willingly, and that was just the beginning. Detectives Rob, Albert and Gary Garrison of the Florida Police Department were dispatched to unravel the mystery. They were among the best hands in the Florida PD. Jack was an investment banker. His wife, Trisha, was an immigration lawyer. Both were doing well in their fields, wealthy and respected. They had no children, just a dog and a parrot. At the crime scene, Rob and Gary went straight to work. The garage was cluttered with scattered documents. Two luxury cars, a Mercedes and a Range Rover, were parked side by side. Once in the bedroom, the detective froze. Hell had been let loose in the Crowley's home. Clearly, a homicide. Gary, what do you think? Rob asked as they stepped into the bedroom upstairs. Gary studied the scene. Looks like business gone wrong, but we need to find out who's behind it. They examined the bodies before they were taken to the morgue. Judging by the way their eyes are positioned, Rob noted, they knew their attacker. Near the wardrobe, they found packed suitcases, signs that the couple was preparing to flee. There were no fingerprints. Whoever shot them knew exactly what they were doing. Yet oddly, no neighbors reported hearing any gunshots. Rob frowned. Since their mouths were gagged, it means the killer wanted them to feel the pain before shooting them at point-blank range. But why? Everything else in the duplex appeared undisturbed. The only chaos was in the paperwork scattered in the house and cars. No forced entry, no struggle. The Crowleys had allowed their attacker inside. Forensics worked tirelessly, combing through every inch. From the bedroom window, Rob noticed he had a direct view of the building opposite. He then went to question the neighbor. The neighbor, an elderly woman, visibly shaken, told him, maybe 3 days ago, their cars were gone for a while. Then, 3 nights ago, Jack came home in his Mercedes. An hour later, Trisha arrived. Their dog barked non-stop. Their windows were tinted, so I couldn't see if they were alone. Did you see anyone leave? Gary asked. No, just the dog barking. Then silence. Tonight, when the barking started again, I called the cops. They checked her ring camera, nothing unusual. They gave her a card in case she remembered more. Why would 2 respected members of the community be murdered in cold blood? Gary asked. They didn't socialize much. They were wealthy, and they gave to charity. Rob studied the scattered documents. Whoever was here wanted access to something valuable. Maybe money, jewelry, insurance. Gary nodded. Insurance. Rob shook his head. No, I think someone close to them did this. This isn't about money. It is something darker. In the living room, a portrait of Jesus hung on the wall. On the fridge, a cross. They're Catholic, Rob said. Let's check their parish. They visited a nearby church, where they met Father John, the parish priest. Were Jack and Trisha Crowley members of your church? Rob asked. They were part of my flock, Father John said with a sigh. Good people, supporters of the parish. When did you last see them? Gary asked. Sunday. Trisha said she would visit me during the week, but she never came. I called her twice, but she didn't answer. Rob pressed. Do you know why she wanted to see you? She mentioned confession. She once confessed to cheating on her husband, but they had settled it. Maybe she wanted to confess again. God forgives always. Why all the questions, if I may ask? Father John said. Because they were found dead, Gary replied. The detectives left uneasy. Father John seemed rattled, but not shocked enough for a priest who had just lost 2 devoted parishioners. Forensic analysis of the couple's laptops and phones revealed messages between Jack and a Mexican client, Martinez Orlando. Jack had invested money for him, but disputes arose. Martinez wanted his money back. Trisha was also working with Martinez on immigration matters. Did he know Jack and Trisha were married? Perhaps not. Trisha changed her last name. But before they could pursue Martinez, they learned he and his family had been killed in Mexico by cartel members. Is this a coincidence or connection? Back at the Crowley's home, detectives discovered a hidden camera. Its memory card revealed visitors including Father John. He was laughing, smiling. Others were unknown, except for an elderly woman later discovered to be Martinez's aunt. At the church, the detectives spotted her again. She confirmed that the Crowley had been helping immigrants enter the US, some legally, others illegally. Martinez's case had been one of them. She whispered, "Everyone in the parish has benefited from the Crowleys. Even Father John knows, maybe too much. He blesses them always." Her words made the detectives suspicious of Father John. Among the Crowleys' paperwork was a ledger. In the ledger were dozens of names and payments. At the bottom, one word scrawled in red, Eyes, with the initials JM. At first, it seemed meaningless. They need to connect it to something. They watched the video again. A tattoo on the wrist of one of the men in the video caught their eyes. The initials fit. A possible match with the initials on the ledger, but without the eye. What does it stand for? Gary asked. Disturbed, they decided to see Father John in church. As they parked outside, they saw two men arguing with the priest. One was identified as the man in the video. They watched from inside the car. "I think those are cartel members," Rob said. But Father John wasn't afraid. He was calm, and the men, though looking tough, calmed down. Then he blesses them. The detectives realized Father John knew more than he is letting on. The detectives dug into whispers. They sent the name and logo across to the Mexican border. It didn't take long until they got a call. Immigrants spoke of Los Ojos de Méndez, the Eyes of Mendez, a ghostly cartel figure who smuggled people, extorted families, killed traitors. Nobody had ever seen him. Nobody knew his face. Rob was worried. "We have to see that woman again." They visited her home. Unfortunately, when they entered her apartment, she has been killed. Rob knew now that whoever the killer was must be watching everything. The person was playing God. But why kill the old lady? They had sent a message to Mexico. The pattern was the same. She had been bound, gagged, and hacked with a machete. There were no fingerprints. She also knew the killer. They had been watching the church the whole time, and Father John hadn't left. There was no way he could have killed the lady, except by ordering it. They visited Father John. When they arrived, he wasn't surprised to see them. Rob realized he knew they were coming, and he was prepared. "Have you come to make a confession?" he said, jokingly. "No one knows the time. He will die. So I always ask my flocks to be prepared." Rob said Martinez's aunt has just been found dead in her home. Father John neither felt sorry nor flinched. All he said was, "God gives, and he takes freely. As for the living, he gives them a chance to repent of their sins willingly. To those who open their doors when he knocks, he enters willingly." Gary said, "You speak in riddles," the reverend gentleman replied. "Just like you. We work and hope to see another day. Death is inevitable. Living long depends on how we live our lives." "What do you mean, Father, by how we live our lives?" He smiled. "Living a godly life means staying away from trouble." Gary's eyes grew wide. Was he sending us a message? Or was he saying she was killed because she had done something wrong? And if she had, to whom? As they were leaving the church, they got a message from the Mexico Interpol in Cancun. They had been investigating the death of Martinez Orlando and found out he was working with Ojos de los Méndez, translating to the Eyes of the Mendez. They are the only cartel around Cancun that inflict pain on a traitor with a machete before they are killed. But there was something else, the caller said. It had been 10 years since the head of the cartel disappeared without a trace, and such killings had stopped until now. Did he have a tattoo with an eye and the letters MJ? Yes, he did, the caller said. There is a link. I think the cartel is being run from the US into Mexico. That means the head isn't dead, but is a live and visible dot. If only we look deeper. Another search of the old lady's home and revealed she had called someone on the phone. 2 days prior, she had threatened to go to the police if the person didn't meet her demand. They tracked the number, but it wasn't a registered cell but a burner phone. They searched the church at night. There was no phone in the church. That raised their suspicion about Father John. Time was running out. They feared for the members of his church. They did some investigation about him and realized he has been father there for over 9 years. They visited the bishop with his photo. The bishop said he was a good priest, which was why the members wanted him there indefinitely. Besides, most of the members were Mexican. It was more like a family. Can you tell us where he came from? The bishop said, these things are kept secret. His past is buried with Christ, and he is a new creature. Do you think he is into drugs or something? No, he can't be. He has nothing and lives a modest life. He lives for God. The bishop concluded. The detectives started to dig into the church history from when the priest came. They sent his picture to Interpol in Concom. While they were waiting, they found another important document amongst the scattered papers in Crowley's home. In the document, Trisha Crowley had written to a friend, telling her she needs saving because her life and that of her husband was being threatened. She said if anything happened to her or her husband, the person should report to the police. There was no address. The person was a mystery. She knew her life was in danger. Who was the mystery woman? And why didn't she tell her priest? Maybe she was too ashamed to admit cheating again, thinking the reverend gentleman of God will be offended. If they could find this person, they may be able to solve the case quickly. They received an email from Interpol. JM stands for John Méndez, but the man in the photo looks older, with blonde hair. He once had a large scar across his nose before he vanished. They weren't sure, especially with the scar gone, but the message said it was a possibility he was John Méndez. The eyes of Ojos lost to Méndez. The message tied the Crowleys to the name JM. Interpol has seen transfer in various banks and offshore accounts, done using immigrants. But there was something else. A huge chunk of the money ended up in an account under the name Juan Maximiliano Hotel and Resorts, a beach hotel in Mexico. They had been laundering money for JM through immigration schemes. The message from Interpol was clear. A woman had given them vital details about JM in the Miami area 2 days earlier. Both names could be connected. Rob and Gary were at a loss. Maybe John Méndez was the true owner of the hotel, and the Crowleys had tried to break free, donating more to charity and distancing themselves from him, so he killed them. That could be a possibility. A name change, but the same initials. With this information, they decided to arrest Father John Méndez in church. Rob and Gary stormed the church, but once there, the game changed. There were cartel thugs. Father John stood under a statue with the eyes of a man watching the world. He knew they had him. He smiled like a fox. I thought you'd never find out, he said. A fierce gunfight erupted. Several died on both sides. Father John fought like a man who had been planning for this day. But in the end, he was shot dead. From his safe, more evidence tied him directly to the cartel's US operations. Trisha had also been his lover. That was how he lured her into the operation, through sex and blackmail. When she told her husband, they stopped financing his church and pulled away from working for him. But they underestimated him. He took care of them. He also dealt with Martinez, Orlando's aunt, who had tried to blackmail him into funding her life of luxury, so he silenced her as well. Martinez was executed for betrayal. He had been stealing John Méndez's money without realizing that Father John was the Eyes of Mendez. He had orchestrated it all. Rob stared at his body. A large tattoo of an eye was inked on his back. God sees all even in the dark. And so did the Eyes of Mendez. Father John had lived as both priest and predator. His mask was finally removed.